All right, so get this. We're going deep on something that could really hit your wallet hard.
Yeah.
Your 2025 tax refund.
Oh, yeah.
You sent over some really interesting stuff about the Irs Path Act,
Right.
like actual excerpts from the legislation and some slides that break down like the key points and dates.
Uh-huh.
So if you're planning on claiming the earned income tax credit
Okay.
or the additional child tax credit this year, this one's for you.
It's wild how just one piece of legislation from way back in 2015 can still have such a big impact on so many people.
Seriously. Before we get into the details,
Okay.
can you give us like a quick overview of what the Path Act even is?
Well, the Protecting Americans from Tax Hikes Act, or PATH Act for short,
Right.
it made some tax provisions permanent,
Okay.
including expansions to the EITC and ACTC.
Okay.
But a key part of it is that the IRS is required to hold refunds for anyone who claims those credits until at least February 15th.
Gotcha.
It's basically an extra layer of fraud protection.
So if I'm getting this right, even if I file like in January,
Right.
I could be waiting for over a month to get my refunds.
Yeah, that's right. And here's the thing.
Okay.
Even if only part of your refund is related to those credits, the entire amount gets held.
Oh, okay. That's huge.
It is.
How many people are we talking about here?
Oh, easily 30 million taxpayers each year.
Wow. That's a lot of people waiting.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say, you filed early
Okay.
and you're claiming either the EITC or the ACTC.
All right.
What happens next? What should people expect to see or not see in their Where's My Refund tool?
Well, the first thing to remember is that your tax account will be frozen until after February 15th.
Oh, wow.
It's because of the PATH Act.
Mm.
The IRS calls this a sea freeze.
The sea freeze. That sounds intense.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean for people's returns?
It's kind of like a time lock
Oh, okay.
on your tax account.
Right.
Absolutely nothing can be changed until it lifts on February 15th at 11:59 p.m.
No adjustments.
Really?
No corrections. Nothing.
So if you, realize you made a mistake,
Yeah.
you're kind of stuck with it.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's why it's super important to double, even
Yeah.
triple check
Yeah.
everything before you submit.
That's a good tip. Okay, so let's say you've, filed your return.
Yes.
It's accurate.
Yeah.
And now you're just playing the waiting game.
Right.
What kind of updates can people realistically expect to see between, now and February 15th?
Honestly, not much.
Huh.
You'll probably see a message on Where's My Refund,
Okay.
stating that your return is being held because of the PATH Act. But that's pretty much it. Don't panic if your status doesn't change much.
Right.
It's just, sitting tight under that sea freeze.
So is it even, worth checking Where's My Refund at all during this holding period?
Well-
Is that just going to make me more anxious?
It's tempting to check constantly,
Yeah.
but it's really not necessary.
Because your account will only update once a week.
Oh, okay.
Usually on Fridays.
Gotcha.
So checking once a week is more than enough.
Okay, so patience is key here.
Yeah.
What about after February 15th, though,
Okay.
when the freeze is finally lifted? Is it smooth sailing from there?
Well, most people will start seeing movement on their returns after that date,
Right.
but it's still not instantaneous. The IRS has to process so many returns,
Yeah, of course.
so it takes time.
So when can people realistically expect to see those updates?
Okay.
And most importantly, those direct deposits hitting their bank accounts.
We'll dive deeper into those specific dates
Right.
in part 3 of our deep dive.
Gotcha.
But for now, just know that even after that February 15th hold lifts, there's still a bit of a waiting period.
Okay, got it. So we talked about what happens if you file before February 15th,
Right.
but what if you file after? Does the PATH Act still apply?
Here's a little twist. If you file after February 15th this year, the PATH Act won't affect you at all.
Really?
Your return will be processed, like usual,
Right.
following the standard IRS timeline.
So if you, tend to put off doing your taxes, this year it might actually kind of work out in your favor.
Exactly.
Right.
But of course, it's always best to file as early as possible
Right.
once you have all your documents.
Of course, good advice. Now, we know our listener is planning to claim both the EITC and ACTC.
Okay.
So they're definitely in that PATH Act zone. What's one key takeaway you want them to remember from, this part of our deep dive?
I'd say the most important thing is to understand the timeline and be prepared for that holding period.
Right.
You know that your refund will probably be delayed until at least late February.
Okay.
And that allows you to plan accordingly
Right.
and manage your finances.
That's great advice.
Thanks.
We'll be back in just a moment. to delve a little deeper into the nuances of the PATH Act
Right.
and what to expect after that all-important February 15th deadline.
Sounds good.
Stay with us.
Okay.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about that waiting period between filing your taxes and actually getting your refund,
Mm-hmm.
especially for those,
Yeah.
impacted by the PATH Act.
We get a lot of questions from people who are claiming the EITC or ACTC, but they never see that, PATH Act message on their Where's My Refund page.
Yeah, I could see how that would be confusing.
Yeah, it is a little
And
confusing.
they're probably like, did something go wrong?
Right, exactly.
Did my return get lost?
Yeah, am I in trouble?
Yeah.
But in that case,
Okay.
it's actually good news.
Oh, really?
It likely means their return isn't subject to the hold. Maybe they just, squeaked under the radar this year,
Sure.
or there's some other factor at play.
So they can just, breathe a sigh of relief
Yeah,
and wait for their refund,
exactly.
just like everyone else.
As long as there aren't any other issues
Okay.
or red flags with their return,
Right.
it should be smooth sailing.
That's reassuring.
Yeah.
But for those who do get the PATH Act message,
Right.
let's talk about those IRS status codes,
Oh, yeah.
because those can be really cryptic.
They really can be.
It's almost like a whole other language.
It's true.
So how do we decode that?
Well,
What do people need to know?
it's important to remember that C-freeze,
Right.
because your account is essentially on hold,
Okay.
those status updates will only happen once a week,
Okay.
usually on Fridays.
Gotcha.
So even if you see your status change from, say, return received
Okay.
to still being processed, it doesn't necessarily mean anything significant happened. It's
Okay.
just, the system doing its weekly check-in.
So it's not like they're actually working on my return right now.
Right.
It's just like an automatic thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
The real changes and updates will likely come after February 15th,
Right.
when that hold is officially lifted.
Gotcha.
That's when you might see a more meaningful status change.
Like what?
Like refund approved.
Oh, okay.
Or even better,
Yeah.
a direct deposit date.
Ooh, a date.
Yeah.
That's what we want to see.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Speaking of misunderstandings about the PATH Act,
Okay.
what are some of the most common ones you've come across?
One we hear all the time
Uh-huh.
is that the PATH Act is like a temporary thing.
Okay.
But as we've discussed,
Yeah.
it's been in effect for almost a decade.
Right.
And those expanded provisions for the EITC and ACTC are actually permanent parts of the tax code.
Okay.
Yeah.
So people need to
Yeah,
factor this in long term.
absolutely.
Okay.
Another misconception is that it only affects people who owe taxes.
Okay.
But we've already talked about how it applies to anyone
Right.
claiming those specific credits.
Right. Regardless of whether they're getting a refund or not.
And to clarify, even if only a tiny portion of someone's refund is tied to those credits,
Right.
the whole thing is held until after February 15th.
Yeah. That's a great point to emphasize.
Okay.
And finally,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people think the PATH Act is only about preventing fraud.
Okay.
Well, that's a major part of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's also designed to make sure everyone gets the correct amount
Right.
that they're entitled to.
So it's not just about catching, the bad guys.
Exactly.
It's about making sure everyone's treated fairly.
Right.
And they go what they deserve.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Huh.
Now, let's, shift gears a bit.
Okay.
While the PATH Act is meant to protect taxpayers, I'm wondering,
Okay.
what are the downsides?
Wow.
Especially for, those who really rely on these refunds to make ends meet?
That's a really good point.
It's one thing to understand how it all works.
Yeah.
But what's the actual, impact?
Well, for a lot of Americans.
Those tax refunds are really important. They help them catch up on bills,
Yeah.
pay off debt, or just, put food on the table.
Right.
So when you factor in a delay of several weeks,
Okay.
or even longer,
Mm-hmm.
it can create, a real financial strain.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to build in a buffer
Exactly.
to your finances.
Yeah.
Knowing that money's not going to be there right away.
Exactly.
And for families who are already living paycheck to paycheck,
Right.
that delay can be a huge problem.
Oh, yeah.
They might have to rely on credit cards
Uh-huh.
or loans, which can lead to debt.
Exactly. That's right.
So even though the PATH Act is meant to be good,
Yeah.
it kind of accidentally
Right.
creates
Right.
these
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah. For those who are the most vulnerable,
Yeah, it's tricky.
yeah, it's a tough situation.
But how do you balance
Right.
protecting the system
Yeah.
and making sure people have access to their money?
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Okay.
are there any like resources that people can go to like
Yeah.
learn more about all this Path Act stuff?
Of course.
Okay.
The IRS website is always a good place to start.
Okay.
They have a section specifically on the Path Act.
Okay.
And their tax topic 152, refund information, has a ton of details about the refund process.
Okay, cool. And what about the IRS To Go app?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, is that helpful?
Yeah, it's super convenient for checking your refund status and getting personalized tax information.
Okay.
You can even access tax forms and publications.
Oh, wow. Right from your phone.
Exactly. That's amazing.
And for anyone who needs more like personalized advice, I always recommend talking to a tax professional.
Okay, good advice.
Thanks.
We've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Deciphering those codes, busting myths.
And looking at the bigger implications of this legislation.
Yeah, we've explored the good.
Yeah.
The bad and the confusing.
But the adventure isn't over yet.
Not yet.
When we come back for the final part of our deep dive, we'll finally get to those dates.
Yeah. The big question.
When are those Path Act refunds hitting bank accounts in 2025?
Plus, we'll share some tips on how to make the most of your refund.
Right.
Even if it comes a little later than you'd like.
Okay, sounds good. Stay tuned for the grand finale.
We'll see you soon.
Okay, we're back. And I think it's safe to say, everyone wants to know, like, when's that money hitting my bank account?
The big question.
The big question.
So we've analyzed historical patterns, IRS guidance, all that good stuff. And we've got some predictions for when those Path Act refund updates will start rolling in.
All right, I'm ready to give me the dates.
Okay, so as a reminder, the official hold list at midnight on February 15th.
Right.
But as we've discussed, don't expect any immediate changes. The first wave of updates should hit on Saturday, February 22nd.
So February 22nd, that's the date to circle.
Yep, that's the one.
Okay. What should people be looking for specifically?
Most early filers who claim the EITC or ACTC should see their Where's My Refund tool update with a projected direct deposit date.
Okay.
The IRS also starts posting transcript updates on that day.
Gotcha.
So you can double check there as well.
All right. Fingers crossed. Everyone's got a date by then.
Right.
But tell me, when's the money actually expected to like land in bank accounts?
We predict the first batch of direct deposits will arrive on Wednesday, February 26th.
So about a week after the hold lifts. That's not too bad.
Nope.
But what if someone doesn't see an update or a deposit by that date?
Okay.
Should they be worried?
Not at all.
All right.
The IRS processes returns in batches, meaning not everyone gets their update or deposit on the same day.
Right.
Some folks might just have to wait a little longer.
Makes sense. Are there any other, like, key dates to keep in mind?
Our predictions show the next round of updates probably happening on Saturday, March 1st.
Okay.
This batch might include folks who filed a little later.
Okay.
Or whose returns needed a little extra review.
Gotcha. And then what? Like after that?
Yeah.
What's the timeline?
We're anticipating further updates and deposits rolling out on March 8th.
Gotcha.
And March 15th.
Gotcha.
By that point, the vast majority of Path Act filers should have their refunds.
Okay, so even though there's a bit of a delay,
right,
sounds like there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, for sure.
Waiting for a refund, though, especially if you're, like, really counting on that money, can be super stressful.
It can.
Do you have any, like, tips for our listeners on how to, like, manage that waiting period?
Definitely. Communication is key.
Okay.
If you're worried about bills or expenses, reach out to your creditors. Explain the situation. Most creditors are pretty understanding and willing to work with you.
That's a good point.
Especially if you have a good history of on-time payments.
Always better to be proactive.
Yeah, exactly.
What else can people do?
This can also be a good time to look at your budget.
Okay.
See if there's anywhere you can cut back or save.
Right.
Even small adjustments can make a difference.
It's like turning a negative into a positive.
Yeah, exactly.
They're making the most of the situation. Yeah.
And don't forget, once that refund does arrive, make a plan for how you'll use it.
Okay.
Maybe pay down some high-interest debt, bolster your emergency fund, or even start a small investment.
Those are all good ideas.
Yeah.
As we wrap up this deep dive,
what's
like the one key takeaway you want our listener to remember about the Path Act?
I think the most important thing is to be informed and prepared.
Okay.
Knowing what to expect and when can really help with the stress. and empower you to make good financial decisions.
That makes sense.
Remember, the PATH Act is there to protect taxpayers and the system,
Yeah.
even if it means a bit of a wait.
Well said. And to our amazing listener,
Yes.
thank you so much for joining us
Thank you.
on this journey into the depths of the PATH Act.
It's been fun.
Hopefully you've gained some valuable insights and you feel ready to tackle this tax season.
You got
It's
with
confidence.
Absolutely.
Knowledge is power.
It is.
The more you understand, the better off you'll be.
Right.
Until next time, happy filing, everyone.
Happy filing.